As an aspiring backend developer, you need to know how your static websites become dynamic. And here's how, using JavaScript. But before that, let's go back to the 1990s. Does anyone recognize this logo? Most likely not. This is Netscape, a browser that held up to 80% of the market share in the 90s. And like what would happen to any other company, there were competitors that came into the landscape of browsers and which eventually led to the 90s war of browsers. And who do you think won? And yes, it was Internet Explorer. That's how we know Internet Explorer more than Netscape now. And then eventually Netscape had to shut down, the browsers shut down, and the technology that they used is now incorporated in the modern day Mozilla Firefox. But Netscape's main aim was to bring interactivity, animations, and make the web pages dynamic. And so in in 1995, they called Brendan Eich to build a scripting language that would enable them to do that, making the browsers interactive. So Brendan Eich, built JavaScript in just 10 days and initially called it LiveScript, and later Microsoft called it JScript, and then there was the name Java that became very popular, and then they then called it JavaScript. And later on, when ECMAScript or ECMA, the company ECMA, was given the authority of JavaScript to build the newer versions of it, at that point, the European Computer Manufacturing Association, ECMA, they named it ECMAScript. And now that's the reason the latest versions of JavaScript are all named as ES5, ES6, ES7. That just stands for ECMAScript 6, 7, and so on. So now I think that's enough about the history and how JavaScript was born. And now let's move on to the live coding part of this. So here I have my HTML page, and this is firstly there was an HTML boilerplate that I created, and now the one new thing that's different from the previous session is that here I have linked a script. Now this script.js is something that you can see over here that I've already created, and this is how you can link your HTML with your JavaScript. So let's just dive into the JavaScript file. Now, the first thing that we are going to see is how to print a text on to a console using JavaScript. For that, you have this syntax console.log, and within the brackets you write in hello world. So let's see how this works. So for that, you have to make the web page go live. Open with live server. Now I'll right click, go to inspect, and then in the console you can see the user message hello world is being printed. And moving on, that was the first thing that we had to do. Then what I would say, we'll talk about data types. So here, if you can see, JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. That means you don't have to explicitly mention the data type of a particular variable you are creating. So here you can, as you can see, I just gave it a keyword let. We'll talk about what's that later. And I just gave my variable name. I didn't define it as a string or an integer within my code. So as I said, this is because it's a dynamically typed language. That means the data type is going to be interpreted, right? And it's going to be done in the runtime. So now, if you run this code, you will be able to see that how it's been interpreted in the runtime. So when this code is running, you will see that you will get the type of here it's my string and my num. Okay. Yeah. So let's go back, and here you can see string and number have been defined, right? So that means my string is actually string and my number is a number data type. So data type, although we didn't mention, the code is able to compile it. And now we will move on to the next concept, that is concatenation. So here I'll uncomment this code. So I have two variables, one is a number, another is a string. And as you saw in the first code that we had typed, we just had a string, right? Only one type. Now, if you want to combine two types and you want to like include variables in it, a normal string in it, then you use concatenation. That is, you can connect all of them using a plus. Okay, so I'm writing a string, I'm a number, and then I'm going to print this a variable. So things work like that. So let's go and see how this came about. Okay, so over here you can see I'm a number, I'm a string is being typed from the line 23. So you can see line 23 is being console logged successfully. So now again I'll comment this. And now we'll go to a simple function. Okay, so here you have the function. Yeah. So over here I have used the function keyword and the function name, and I have given two parameters, that is a, b, and then I'm doing the sum, right? I'm writing the logic of how to calculate the sum. The computer doesn't know by itself. We have to give all the logic. So I'm saying to just add it, and I'm saying to return the answer. So these lines of code, we are doing the function declaration. We're just declaring the function. We haven't called it. We're just initializing it, right? And we're just saying JavaScript that this code is there. I will call it whenever I want. Now here in this line we are calling it. Okay, so here if you see, this is exact calling that we're doing. We're giving the parameter values and we're calling in the sum, the function sum. So when you hover over, you can see there. And now why we have used this var total? Now whatever the answer is going to come, we are going to return that over here, right? So the total will have the actual answer or the sum of those two numbers that you have entered. Now let's go back and see whether this happened successfully. Yes, the sum is 14, right? So here 12 was the number 2, then when you add it's 14. So the total is being successfully, because I've called the function, the total is being added, and then here I can see my total printed in the console. Now I will comment this again, and then let's go to the next important concept. That's the difference between the var, let, and the const keywords, right? So you actually in JavaScript, you have these keywords to define variables. Since you're not doing that using any kind of what do you say, data type, we're not defining data types over here. We just define using var, let, or the const keywords. So var keyword is function scope, let is block scope, and const is also block scope and cannot be reassigned. So what is this block scope, function scope? For that, to understand that, we are going to uncomment this line of code, right? So over here I have a function, okay, I just named it randomly, and then over here I have a variable x that I have called using the var keyword, right? I have initialized using the var keyword. Then within my if block, that is okay, again this if block is within the function, inside that I have defined a variable y, right, with let keyword. Now let's see if I call, or if I ask to print out y and z, both of them within the if statement, within the if block, will it work or not? So let's go check it out. So here if you see line 46, 47, right, this is the same lines that we have put in. Over there you can see both let, whatever variable let had, that also the value is printed. The var keyword variable, that value 10 is also printed. Now over here we have this code where we are printing x outside. Okay, this x variable that we defined, we are printing it outside the if block. That also works. Okay, variable 10, that's for line 50. Now let's see what happens if I want to call in my y variable within the function, but outside the if block, right? It's outside the if block. Although I defined it inside, I want to call it outside. Let's see what's going to happen. Uncommitted that. Okay, so here, if you see there's an error that has been, you can see one error over here. That is y is not defined. That's why in our user messages also you saw this both, let's 46, 47 getting printed. These all are previous whatever we run. In this live version, we are running these only 46, 47. So these 49 and 50 were not able to be run because in for line 49 we have an error. And what is that error? That is y is not defined. So although x was defined both within the if block and also outside, but your y is not defined. So that's how let keyword is. Let is block scope, so it is only defined within the block. But var, within the whole function, anywhere you define it, it's able to be accessed anywhere. Okay, if you define it here, you can access it outside, so things like that. Okay, now let me comment this one as well.